Welcome children. Today we continue with the fifth part of our chapter Nazism and the Rise of Hitler for class 9th. In this video we will learn about the atrocities and the crimes Hitler committed against humanity. So let's go back to the story of Helmut and his father. Adolf Hitler was frustrated by the Germans' defeat in the First World War, which had left Germany economically depressed and politically unstable. So in 1919, Hitler joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party, and due to his charismatic speeches, he attracted new members to the party. And in most of his speeches, he said that unemployment, inflation, hunger, and economic crisis in Germany would continue until there is total revolution, until there is total change. And he said that most of the problems could be solved if the Jews and the communists were driven out of the country. So his speeches had a mass appeal and his popularity started growing, and soon he became the leader of this party. He was called as the Führer or the leader, and he named this party as the Nazi Party. Now the Nazi Party grew more, gathered more support under Hitler's leadership. It attracted the support of the influential people in the military, in the big business houses, and the society. And he emphasized on propaganda to attract attention of the people. He used the press, slogans, posters, eye-catching emblems, and uniforms. He also organized meetings and rallies. Okay, and he abolished all political parties and ruled as one party and as a dictator from 1933 to almost 1945. He also used violence, emergency decrees, and intimidation to seize control of the people. What is intimidation? Meaning fear and threat. Okay, so that people obey him and follow his orders. What was Nazism? Yes, Nazism was basically Hitler's philosophy, his ideas and his principles. And the main features of Nazism was racial hierarchy, and the second was Lebensraum. According to the Nazi ideology, there was no equality between people, but only a racial hierarchy. Now in this racial hierarchy, the blonde, the blue-eyed, Nordic, German, Aryan were placed at the top of the ladder. So you can see this figure that I've shown you. It has here, this boy has blue eyes and hair are golden, which is called as blonde. So you see children, in this racial hierarchy, the blonde, blue-eyed, Nordic, German, Aryan were placed at the top, while the Jews were placed at the bottom. That's because the Jews were regarded as anti-race, arch enemies of the Aryans. And all other colored people who are mixed with either the Aryans or the Jews were placed in the middle, depending on the external features. If they looked good, they were considered better than the Jews, and they were kept in the middle of the hierarchy. This is somewhat similar like our Varna system in India, where you have the Brahmins at the top and the Shudras at the bottom. Now Hitler borrowed this racism philosophy from Charles Darwin and Herbert Spencer. Now Charles Darwin was a natural scientist, and he explained the creation of plants and animals through the concept of evolution and natural selection. Now children, let me explain to you what is evolution and natural selection. So in the first picture you see the height of the animals. They are varying, isn't it? So one is small, the other is a little bigger than this, and then there's the tallest one. and they all need to survive. Okay, so you can see the tallest one taking the help of the shortest climbs up and eats the leaves, while the other one who cannot do it perishes. So you see, all these then adapt to the situation, okay, and they evolve, and this happens by a natural process. So that is the meaning of evolution and natural selection. Okay, so it means that the idea that species change over time and give rise to new species, and they all share a common ancestor. So that is what Charles Darwin wanted to tell us, that evolution, we have evolved from the monkeys, and you can see the stages of evolvement, and it has happened in purely in a natural form. Okay. Now Herbert Spencer's idea was survival of the fittest, okay, which means that only those species survived on the earth that could adapt themselves to the changing climatic conditions. Okay. Now Charles Darwin's theory of evolution was a natural process, okay, was purely natural, and he never said that there should be human intervention. He said no human intervention. That means humans should not eliminate the others. Okay, he said the evolution has to be a natural process. Now Hitler misinterpreted the thinkings of Charles Darwin and Herbert Spencer. According to Hitler, the strongest race would survive and the weak ones will perish. Hitler wanted to create a racially superior society consisting of only Nordic German Aryans, and he would eliminate the rest by killing the Jews and the other communities which were considered less superior than the Aryans. So Hitler propagated that the German Nordic Aryan race was the finest race, and they must retain its purity, make it become stronger so that it dominates the world. The other Nazi ideology was the geopolitical concept. Now, what is geopolitical? Yes, it is the study of the way a country's size and its position influence its power and its relationship with other countries. Now, Hitler's geopolitical concept was Lebensraum, meaning living space. Now Hitler, in order to overcome the economic crisis, decided to occupy more and more land. Okay, for that he needed to extend the German boundaries, and he went eastwards to occupy more land so that he could give more living space to the German people. Now when he occupies land, obviously with the land he will get lots of other resources. You'll get the industries, the good soil if it is there, which will lead to the prosperity of the Germans. And he wanted all the Germans, all of the Germans to be concentrated in one place. Now when Hitler occupied a territory, he decided that he would make all the natives move out of that place, and so that that area will be empty for the Germans to live in, and they'll have a proper place to live, so they will get more living space. So Hitler started with occupying more territories, and Poland was the first place where he occupied, and that became the laboratory of his experiment. Once the Nazis came to power, Hitler quickly began to implement his dream of establishing a racial state. Hitler wanted to create an exclusive racial community of pure, healthy, Nordic German Aryans. How did he do it? Let's see. Now Hitler eliminated the undesirables, who were seen as undesirables, by physically eliminating them. Even those Germans who were considered impure and abnormal had no right to live. Now, the ones who were considered desirable had the right to prosper and had the right to multiply its family. Under the euthanasia program, now euthanasia means painless killing, Helmut's father, along with the others, killed many Germans who were considered mentally and physically unfit. Many gypsies and blacks were considered racially inferior and they too were persecuted. Even the Poles and the Russians were considered subhuman and were killed. When Germany occupied Poland and parts of Russia, they captured the civilians and were forced to work as slave labor, and many died due to hard work and starvation. The Jews remained the worst sufferers in Nazi Germany. The Nazis hated the Jews because traditionally the Christians remained hostile towards the Jews. They were blamed for killing Jesus Christ and were labeled as killers of Christ. Now, the Jews were labeled as killers of Christ and they were also labeled as usurers. That means they were money lenders who lent money and charged unreasonable high rate of interest. The Jews were even not allowed to own a piece of land. Now the Jews, since they were not allowed to own any land, they mainly survived through trade and money lending. The Jews were made to live separately in marked areas called ghettos, and they were persecuted through periodic violence and even expelled from the land. Hitler's hatred of the Jews was based on his pseudo-scientific theories of race, which said that conversion of the Jews was no solution. It could only be solved through total elimination. Now, what is pseudo-scientific? That means this theory is not true, has no scientific base. The Jews were further terrorized, reduced to poverty, they were segregated, they were compelled to leave the land, and later we see they were put into large numbers in gas chambers where they were killed. Moving ahead to the next topic, the racial utopia. Now, what is the meaning of utopia? A place or a state that exists only in imagination, where everything is perfect. So Hitler wanted Germany to develop into a superior race which consisted only of the Nordic German Aryans, the blue-eyed and the blonde people. And he wanted to eliminate all the other races which were inferior. Under the shadow of war, Hitler wanted to create a racial utopia. For this, he began to eliminate all those who were racially inferior, especially the Jews. So genocide and war became two sides of the same coin. Now, what is genocide? Genocide is mass killing of a particular group of people, and here in Germany, this group of people were the Jews. Children, as you know, Hitler had occupied Poland, and half of the Poland belonged to Germany and the other half was under the Soviet Union. Hitler divided Poland into two parts. So you can see the pink portion and the red portion. So the northwestern part of Poland, that is in pink color, all the Poles who were living in this region were forced to leave their homes and properties behind, and they were herded like cattle and made to stay in the other part, which was called as the general government, this red area. So all the undesirables, this became the place. They were all pushed to this undesirable. So were pushed to this area called as the general government, the part that they had divided Poland into. Okay, and the pink area was meant for all the ethnic Germans who were belong to the Nordic Aryan race. So children, you can see here in this map that all the Poles were forced to leave their homes and properties and were herded like cattle and made to stay in this red area called the general government. So that this red area, the general government, became a destination for all the undesirable and the racially inferior races to stay in. Another atrocity by Hitler was that he got all the Polish intelligentsia murdered in large numbers so that the entire population could now be treated like slaves. So if the educated and the leaders were killed, then the entire population has nothing to look forward for but to become a slave. Even Polish children who looked like Aryans were forcibly snatched from their parents. The snatched children were then examined by race experts, and if they passed the test, then they were given to a German family where they were raised properly, and if they failed the test, they were sent to an orphanage where most of them died. Now let us move ahead to the next topic, steps to death, and see the steps adopted by Hitler to eliminate the Jews, the Gypsies, the blacks, and all those who were considered as undesirables. Now the first stage of death was exclusion. The first stage was exclusion, which was performed between 1933 to 1939. And the Jews and the undesirables had no right to live among the Germans as citizens. So only German citizens enjoyed the protection of the German Empire. Now under the Nuremberg Laws of Citizenship of September 1935, only German citizens enjoyed the protection of the German Empire. The Jews and the other undesirables were not considered as citizens. According to this law, marriages between Jews and Germans were forbidden. The Jews were forbidden to fly the national German flag. There was boycott of Jewish business. They were removed from government services. They were forced to sell their properties. At times their properties were looted and their houses were attacked. Even Jewish places of worship called synagogues were also burnt. Now let us see the stage 2 of death. The stage 2 was ghettoization, which took place between 1940 and 1944. Now, as I told you, the second stage is ghettoizations. Now the Jews had no right to live among the Germans, so they were all sent to a demarcated area which was constructed for the Jews, where there were no basic amenities. It was very unhygienic. They were all sent and crowded there. So the Jews now had to surrender all their wealth when they entered a ghetto, and most of them died due to hunger, starvation, and due to unhygienic conditions. Okay, and even the Jews now had to wear a yellow star, which was called as the Star of David. Now this was an identity mark which was stamped on their passport, on their legal documents, and even on their houses. Now let us look into the third stage of death. The third stage of death was annihilation. That means the Jews had no right to live. Now the Jews were brought from different parts of Europe, whether they were from Jewish houses or concentration camps or ghettos, and they were brought to the death factory by the goods train. Now this is a picture of a concentration camp. You can see it is fenced with live wire, so it was very difficult for anyone to escape. and once they were put into the death factory, they were made to remove their shoes. So you can see the heaps and heaps of shoes, and can imagine how many people were killed. Now the Jews were packed in this gas chamber, and poisonous gas was released, and mass killing took place within minutes. One such gas chamber was there in Auschwitz. Under the shadow of the Second World War, Germany waged a genocidal war, that is, mass killing, against the Jews. The number of people killed included 6 million Jews, 200,000 Gypsies, 1 million Polish, 70,000 Germans who were considered mentally and physically disabled. Despite this, they also killed innumerable political opponents. Now, the Nazis devised a very new and a novel form of killing people, that is, putting them into gas chambers and killing them by releasing poisonous gas. So, you see, children, millions of people were killed just to establish a racial state. Now, how did Hitler influence the youth of his country? Yes, it was a smart move because youth are the future of any country. How did Hitler influence them? So stay tuned. Meet you later. Thank you.